All right, today is Friday, August 21st, around 1:30, or actually exactly 1:30. I figured I'd do the talk now. I have some ideas fresh in my mind. Spent the last hour kind of making the first order of these 8 tracks for Passage, which started out as American Refugee. Again, this will be, I think, the third talk I've done, and probably the last one I do on this. The approach for this one was similar to Citizen Binary, but I'm just trying to minimalize everything, following that minimalistic approach to lyrics and even some of the riffs and drone stuff. Hopefully, people can get a sense of that. Yeah, it sounds like chaos at times with some really hazy walls of sound or whatever. I'm actually going to go back through all these tracks and maybe add some more layers to stuff. And so far, the biggest problem listening to these tracks was the drum sound. I need to go back. There's one song, Gorilla, that sounds really cool. Regarding the drums, so I have to kind of template that and use it on the other ones. The drums gave me some real issues to make it sound like a real drum set. I was kind of hiding it in the mix more, but now I want it more loud and upfront because I think it adds more balls to everything. So yeah, this is similar to Citizen Binary, these 8 tracks. It's probably about 32, 34 minutes, which was what I was aiming for. I wanted to get 8 tracks, like 4 or 5 minutes each. Most of them are around 4 minutes, so kind of shorter than the Citizen Binary tracks. That was a 6-song album. Yeah, and this one is way different in terms of the lyrics. Originally, you could look at American Refugee when I first wrote that album years ago and put it on Substack, maybe 2022 or 23. And I had a lot of lyrics, verses, choruses, bridges, and I pretty much deleted everything. I just saved 1 or 2 lines and just used it as a mantra for each song because these are basically instrumentals, and whatever vocal melody I developed really just became like another multi-track, not filler, but I just handled the vocals again like some backing track. Nothing is at the forefront. Some of these tracks you probably won't even hear what I'm saying or chanting, and there's a bunch of effects on the vocals. Yeah, I said it before. I realize these aren't real instruments and shit, but I don't give a fuck. If it's interesting music to me, then I'm happy with it. Some point in the future, I could use real instruments, but even that would be hard to layer the way I'm doing it now. So each kind of album will be different, looking way ahead to the future. I'm going to go through the email I sent myself and see if there's anything I really want to talk about. So this will be pretty short. Today I'm pretty much just going to go through these 8 tracks and see if I like the order. I'm going to mess around with the drum sound to make it more authentic and powerful. I was putting too many effects on drums. If you have BandLab, don't put distortion and guitar amps on the drums. It just, I don't know, it makes it sound fake. I was trying to develop, like I said, a template for how the drums should be. Yeah, I made a note that Slayer is awesome. I listened to Slayer a couple days ago or last week, and I think that had some influence on me in terms of the heaviness of some of these songs, but it's hard to develop riffs like I want to develop it without a real guitar, so I'm just kind of doing it as I can do it. The reason I changed the title, if I didn't say before, American Refugee, I don't know, maybe it brings some political overtones, and I don't want any of that shit. I just want it to be an enjoyable 30-minute instrumental, pretty much. And in that vein of Glenn Branca again and Swans, I don't know if they get political, but probably not. It's just enjoyable to escape for, a good 30, 40 minutes. And that's good because anyone can enjoy it if you like this type of music. But yeah, it's going back to the theme of minimalism. Originally, this was going to be like a dystopian tale about some woman in the future who's struggling to survive in some future city that's all fucked up, run by robots and shit. And I'm like, man, that's been done a million times, so I didn't really flesh that out. I'm going to include another doodle book based on some old and new doodles that I reworked and put the lyrics in there, but it's kind of stupid because the lyrics are like one or two phrases, so I might just add the lyrics to the doodles I made, something like that. Yeah, so that's my reasoning for a lot of these changes, I think. And it's all improv, so I'm not really trying to think too hard about this shit. But there's a couple riffs that I really like. There's a song called Snare, and it's a riff I wrote on a road trip like probably 10 years ago. And it was just like dun 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 dun. And I think it's in 7/time, like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. So I was getting kind of weird with that. And then I was like, the time signatures do not matter at all for an album like this, because it's just chaos. I don't even know if it's organized chaos. Maybe I'll go back and kind of rework things. I did spend a good 8-10 hours on each track, and I'm probably going to go back and work on them again for another couple hours. So it's that happy medium of going with your first instinct and improv, and also editing to make yourself happy. So I'm trying to find that happy balance. But I think it's cool. That song really showed what this album's concept is. I'm taking my audio files from 10 years ago that I used acoustic guitar to make these melodies, or I just hummed onto my fucking phone while I was on road trips and shit. And now I'm just taking those and redeveloping them, re-envisioning them through BandLab and through the virtual instruments. These are all, you can call them fake, whatever. Like when I play the guitar, the only thing I'll say negative about BandLab is I don't know how to use guitar on there to make up and down strumming. I don't know how to do that stuff. There's a couple songs where you can hear my acoustic strumming from the original recording. I tried to add some stuff like that to make it more human, because you don't really get a sense of me in this album at all. But the concept is pretty much that. That's what it became. These old audio files from 10 years ago, using acoustic guitar and just humming stuff into my phone back then. And weirdly, I still remember where I was when I came up with that. I was driving through some weird campsite down south somewhere, just looking at wilderness, and that's how I would get ideas like that. Just driving through weird places or scenic areas, Blue Ridge Mountains and shit like that. And yeah, I always took the long way. I tried to stay off the highway so I could be on country roads and stuff. And yeah, it was enjoyable. It's a good way to just get away from yourself and think of ideas like that. So it's cool that I kept all that shit, because it's helped me develop these songs. It gives me a starting point where I took that riff to dun 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 dun, And then listening to Slayer, I think, also influenced me to want to make, I wouldn't really call this a heavy metal album, but it is a heavy drone album. Heavy metal, you can't fake that. You need to have real technical guitar players and shit, and have heavy riffs and all that stuff, and screaming vocals or heavy testosterone vocals. So there's none of that on here, so I wouldn't call this heavy metal. But it is a version of that could get pretty hazy, psychedelic metal, stoner rock, noise rock, all those stupid genre names. So that's where I'm at with this one right now. I don't think I'll release this until next week. I want to spend some time with it, not rush it, and really get the order correct to how I want it to be, so it flows all together like a single piece of music. I think that's way cooler. 30-minute album, you should have the attention span to listen to a whole piece of music like that. I just saw today Weezer had a new album. It's only like 32 minutes. And yeah, that's cool. I want to listen to it. I heard it's like kind of their old stuff. So I like that sweet spot of 30 to 32 to 35 minutes. It's an album that you can get through pretty easily if you're just doing something, in the background or when you're working out and shit. When an album gets to an hour, it becomes like watching a movie where you could get bored at some points. Not all the time, but I'm just saying it could be. It could become too much of a, ego exploration of the artist. What did I listen to yesterday? I just listen to podcasts lately. I got a bunch of albums I want to listen to, but I'm just listening to podcasts because it's better background material for me when I'm doing stuff or working out. And it was some Sixers podcast with Tyrese Maxey saying, you have to, how are you going to survive with all these star players on the Sixers? And he's like, you just got to kill the ego, get the ego out of it. I think that's good for a 30-minute album. I tried to make this as minimal as possible with no really personal shit. It's just anyone could take what they want from these songs. But really, it's just to zone yourself out. That's what ambient music does. Even like Swans for me, or that band Earth I always mention. There's a lot of other ones that I should probably give credit to, but I don't feel like looking it up right now. I did look at my No Wave list from a couple years ago. Maybe I'll just go through that real quick. On my albumoftheyear.org, I'm on there with a bunch of lists, and really it was when I wrote my book, Sonic Youth, Godspeed. I even put Krautrock. This is my list of favorite No Wave albums. I even said I kind of went all over the place because No Wave could be like very specific to New York City in the 80s. And I was like, anything that fits that description, that's not quite instrumental music, but just makes me think of No Wave, like Astra, Temple. There's a artist from 2024, Still Houseplants. I don't even know how to say this band, but I think it has Bjork in it from 1986, KUKL. I don't know how to say this band either. O Su Tempete. Yeah, I feel stupid trying to pronounce these words. I'll just link this list to make it easier for me. Glenn Branca, Symphony No. 13, that's the one. Hallucination City for 100 guitars. And then Glenn Branca, The Ascension. You could put any Glenn Branca on here. Swans, same thing. You could put like any Swans. I'm gonna I'll link this list of maybe 60 albums. Yeah, 60. So you could get an idea of some of the inspirations of why I'm making music like this. Mogwai, I think they're Scottish, kind of ambient noise rock. They're pretty well known. Magma, I got pretty deep into them. I went through their whole discography this year. Magma from the 70s, and they still do stuff. One of my favorite albums from 2024, Samara Lubelski and Marsha Bassett. I'm just going to link this so I don't mess up these names. Lydia Lunch is pretty well known. Savages, they're kind of post-punk, but I think they sound like no wave, so I put them on this list. And the band, Krautrock, the band Faust. There's a lot of other ones, Earth. Yeah, I'll just link this. There's a lot of Krautrock on here that I noticed. Because I don't have enough knowledge of Krautrock to make like a top 50 Krautrock list, so I just added it to this because it reminds me of no wave. I don't know if the no wave people in the 80s were listening to Krautrock of the 70s, but then maybe the Velvet Underground inspired the Krautrock people. So it's all weird. It's all linked somehow. Yeah, I got Swans, a couple of them. Godspeed's really influential, but I can't make Godspeed music. The very symphonic orchestration, I can't do that stuff. The different movements, I haven't tried to really compose stuff like that. I'm just droning out. Droning. I was hoping that was the reasoning for making each song 4 minutes, so it would seem like they all fit into different movements. And I still have to listen to the whole 30 minutes altogether. I still haven't done that. So I just made a quick order of how these songs might go. And later, after I edit these again, I'll listen to the whole 32 minutes, 34 minutes, whatever it is. And hopefully it does give it a flow like that. Because drones could get... I love the drone. I could listen to a good drone for like 10, 20 minutes. Even Fela Kuti has a flair for the drone that kind of just goes on and on and on. And then different parts come in when you're so like hypnotized by the feel of it. So there's a sense of no wave to Fela Kuti, like that type of Afrobeat stuff. That's probably why I like that too. So I don't mind it. I can drone out. I prefer that in a way than like 3-4 minute radio songs that are so generic and plastic. I'd rather listen to something that's going to take me somewhere. And that's what I'm trying to do. This is a 32-minute album that I created. 8 songs. And you could call it an instrumental because the lyrics are so minimal and kind of hidden in the background. I tried to get more passionate with the vocals, dig deeper down and express better, but I'm still not really there when I have confidence in my vocals at all. So that's why I kind of hide them and put effects on them and just use them as a form of ambient noise. And I also included the original recordings that I made 10 years ago or whenever I did this. It was a process in 2022 when I put all these tracks together, put all these albums together. And I was always under the impression that it would be exactly like I planned it. And that got totally thrown out the window when I started doing this. It's not to say that I couldn't bring those original ideas back, though. Because I know I couldn't perform these again. Or I couldn't perform these tracks live because it's just noise. It's stupid just to... I don't know, I could loop stuff. People do that, but I don't know how enjoyable that would be. Just looping stuff and my stupid vocals just screaming shit. I don't think it's really meant for a live performance. But if I ever did bring these back as the original form, it would be completely different than what they are now. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. I kept telling myself over this last week that if I can't, I would just sit down and jam on BandLab, pick an instrument. And I was going to say, yeah, there is a negative for BandLab. I don't like a lot of the guitar sounds. But, you could use even flute or horns and then put distortion on it. and put distortion on it and amplify it and other effects, and eventually you get the ballsy noise that is good for an album like this. So even though I don't like all the guitar options on BandLab, they give you enough effects to kind of work with to make it sound cool. And really, it's a drum issue for me now. I need to go back and kind of figure out how to make the drums sound cool, because I think they sound kind of too manufactured. I want them to sound more real and raw, like Nirvana Bleach. I always point to that one. Yeah, sure, Dave Grohl's amazing on Nevermind, but I like Bleach. I really do like Bleach. I think it has a rawness that I really enjoy. So that's my editing for the rest of today, Friday, August 21st. That's pretty much it. But yeah, as I was saying before, if I can't, when I would do a jam session, I would just jam for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes that long. And then I'd start cutting it up, adding different duplicate layers of the jam and finding the good parts. And I'm like, I could never do that again, because it's just the first thing that comes into my head. And I was following that Philip Glass technique where you just, you pick a drone melody and you keep going and going and going. And eventually, either because I'm making mistakes or whatever, the flow is taking me, after a couple of minutes, it turns into something else. A different minimal variation of the original melody. So I was kind of doing that over and over again. But a lot of these are just first takes, almost all of them. There was a couple that I didn't like, so I did delete some of them. But most of them were based on these old riffs and melodies that I came up with, so it's probably harder if I didn't have that. When I did Tribute Velvet and even Citizen Binary, I didn't have these old files to lean on. Be like, yeah, that's cool, let me form something from that. Like, there's a song called Empire. Originally, it was called Fallen Empires. It was supposed to be like about the story, some evil dystopian nightmare science fiction, and this original working of American Refugee. And I was like, how do I bring that into a new version? So I'm just kind of manipulating stuff, because I can't perform the melodies that I was singing originally. Yeah, it's not what I can do right now. And really, to be honest, it's not what I want to do right now. I just want the noise, the drone. It's what I enjoy. I said I was a drone guy, so I'm not angry with that. I'm going to keep kind of focusing on drone stuff, ambient stuff, because that's what I feel like I can do in an honest way, that I really like this stuff. I'm not going to try to be, creating this melodic pop punk shoegaze that I can't really do right now. I don't know if I can do it anyway. But I still enjoy that stuff. Just like with Citizen Binary, I was trying to be hip hop, and I just couldn't do it. At this point, it was just really cheesy. So I'm happy with this. It's got some balls to it, and it's got heaviness, and it's got that drone that I like. Again, I'm totally sober, straight edge. I don't do anything. So that's the message. You can make some weird shit without the use of any kind of psychedelics or anything. But if you want to do that, I don't care. I'm not judging you. But that's just the lifestyle I have lived for the last almost decade. Nothing against it. I don't believe in prohibition and all that shit. I've said this before last time. I just always feel like I have to qualify that so people don't think I'm being some holier than thou, self-righteous prick. I don't agree with the war on drugs or any of that shit. There's a limit, but I don't want to really get into a conversation about that shit. I think that's pretty much all. I'm at 25 minutes. So, yeah, It took me maybe a week and a half to put these together, in between working out and doing some other stuff. Still trying to find a job so I can move out west. Even applied, the last place was like a casino where I was like, why not? I'll work at a casino. I don't give a shit. Casinos, it's not the ideal environment because I used to have like a gambling issue, but I don't gamble anymore either. So I'm not tempted to do it. So hopefully something breaks eventually. Because I would like to move out west within the next couple months. Or as soon as I get a job. As soon as I get a job, I can make a plan and do that and experience a different part of the country. So that's where I'm at in my head. Kind of similar to how I've been the last 3-4 months. Yeah, so it's pretty enjoyable. I'll update again maybe when I'm happy with the finished product and I have everything sounding good and flowing from song to song. That's the most important thing I'm going to focus on. So you could zone out however you want to zone out, whether it's a cup of coffee or a joint or whatever the hell you like to do. You could zone out with headphones because I think this is like a headphones album. Citizen Binary too. I don't think I've listened to it without headphones. These are primarily headphone albums, so you could listen to all the weird drone stuff and some of the layering, very subtle changes and stuff. So yeah, I would call these headphone albums like ambient. Most ambient albums are meant for headphones, I think. Yeah, you could put it on a record player. I fell in love with Music for Airports, Brian Eno, because I found that record at a thrift or at a estate sale. I don't know, like probably 7-8 years ago. So I brought it home and listened to it. Now, I knew who Brian Eno was, but I listened to Music for Airports on a record player and it sounded so cool. So yeah, you can enjoy ambient industrial noise without headphones, but I think it works better on headphones. But that's all. Thanks for listening. Yeah, I'll update this when I want to release this, probably on Bandcamp again, and move on to the next one, which would be right now tentatively. I'm going to try to do that Oceans album since I'm going to do a talk about it. I'm reading that David Toop book, Ocean of Noise or Ocean of Sound. What's it called? And that made me think I should do Ocean of Sound by David Toop. Yeah. I have maybe another 80 pages to go. It's pretty good. I was going to mention this during that talk. Maybe next week I'll do that talk when I'm done with this. But on YouTube, if you want to get a head start on it, there's a great YouTube playlist. And I'll link that too. So I just found it a couple nights ago where somebody made a great playlist on YouTube of every artist that he mentioned in his book, all the ambient stuff and all the krautrock, all the electronic music and stuff. There's even some disco stuff that's pretty cool. Cerrone or Cerrone, I don't know how to say that. That was the one that caught my ears so far. Cerrone, Cerrone, Supernature. I really enjoyed that. It's like a disco drone from the 70s, European disco. I really liked it, the sound of it. And I learned about the gamelan, if I'm saying that correctly. I think it's Indonesian, some kind of a bell or percussion instrument that was pretty cool. And I tried to use it on one of the tracks, but ended up kind of manipulating it with different effects anyway. So yeah, check it out. I don't know. I'll have to link that too when I share these on Substack. These are pretty much my final thoughts, I guess. and unless something else happens and I change stuff dramatically. But going through these 8 tracks, I did go through them this morning, and I like them, the flow of it. Really, the main notes I made was to fix the drums, raise the drums, make it sound more natural than what I had originally. So it's little instances that when I listen to it deep in thought, what's going to piss me off, and then I'll listen to it while doing something else, like going on Instagram, and it's a totally different experience because it's more of a background. But when you really focus your attention on the music, you'll notice every little thing, and it's kind of annoying. But yeah, I didn't like the drum sound, so that's what I'm going to do now, and kind of fix some of the, I don't know, I don't even know the terms for drums. That's how kind of out of it I am in terms of music theory and the lingo. But I got to fix some of the drum sounds because it sounds too fake. And I like the drums on Citizen Binary. I think they sounded pretty ballsy. So I'm trying to match that and make it sound more natural and enjoyable. And yeah, that'll do it. I'll make a note for myself to share that YouTube playlist because it's really good. If I'm going to do a talk about that book, it's definitely worth checking out. There's a lot of interesting types of music on there. I never even knew what a gamelan, I'm probably even saying that wrong. Gamelan, Gamelan. Gamelan is traditional ensemble art of Java, Bali, and Sunda in Indonesia. Yeah, a Javanese term for a hammer. Go check it out. It's pretty cool. Like the one I watched, it was like a group of people playing the same thing at the same time, and it looked really crazy. To be on the same wavelength with like 20, 30 people, it's pretty impressive, man. So I never heard of that before until I read that book and I looked at this YouTube playlist. So yeah, it was a good rabbit hole to go down. Alright, so I'll share that. And what else was I going to share? Something else. I have to listen to this again. But yeah, that's all for now. Anything happens, I'll give an update. But that's everything in terms of this process of passage. American Refugee, which became Passage, because I just wanted to keep it more simple. And even though American Refugee wasn't really about anything to do with me, it was more of a science fiction account. And I changed the cover. I made some new black and white doodles because I did want to have like maybe keep to that style of just using black and white everything. Every album I make, I'll just have black and white covers. But I say that now, but I like colors too. I might have to change that at some point. But I think black and white's cool. It's a cool, I don't know, calling card as an artist. Only use black and white in your cover, in your album art, and in my doodle books that I'm making. Because I like black and white art as well. So, yeah, just things circling around. But I don't know how long that would last. I might get bored with it, like I often do with a lot of my ideas. But that's all. Thanks for listening. And I know when I'm ready to release this and really have a finished product, hopefully by next week at some point. What's today? Friday. So I'll probably spend the next 2 days listening and re-listening and re-listening and re-listening and finishing the doodle book and see what I want to go forward from there. So it was a shorter process and maybe less frustrations, definitely less frustrations than Citizen Binary, but it still is a process to find a relevant sound that I can make with BandLab and my other synthesizer app and make it sound interesting enough that people would want to listen to it and buy this. So yeah, it's still a process. I haven't listened to Citizen Binary in maybe a week, so it'll be cool to go back and listen to it after doing this and compare the two. This one might be a bit darker and more immersive, if that's the right pretentious word. You can really dive into this one and disappear for a half an hour. But all right, that's the end. For real this time. Yeah, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for any more updates.